Hi, my name's Tony Bouncel. Welcome to the Martin Batchelor Gallery. This is a show called
Convergence.
Convergence, thank you, yes. Convergence, and it's four separate artists working both abstractly and from a realistic standpoint, coming together. We're on various sort of paths, and we've kind of come together and are meeting, creating a visual dialogue by comparing and contrasting our various styles together. There are four people in the show, Cheryl Taves, Malcolm Piercy, and Don Piercy. Cheryl, maybe you'd like to say something.
Just thought it might be interesting to let people know that Malcolm and Don are new to Victoria. So Tony met them through a workshop, is that right?
They took a workshop of mine when Malcolm was here on a sabbatical a number of years back, five or 6 years back.
Yeah. And so they just moved to Victoria from Toronto in October. So we're really excited to be introducing them to the Victoria arts community. And Don does some really beautiful watercolor portrait work, very skilled, and Malcolm does some gorgeous work on caddy paper, ink and lacquer, is that what it is?
Ink and emulsion.
Ink and emulsion, yeah. So, and I've been showing in Victoria for a while, but I've been absent for the last couple of years and just sort of re-emerged here at Martin Batchelor. Tony invited me to join in this group, and I was very honored to be part of this show. So presenting some of my new work that I've been working on over the last year. So we hope people will come out. It's a very interesting show. There's a variety of work, and we're really interested in the dialogue that's happening between the representational work and the abstract work. We think it's really holding up really well. And the opening tonight, we've had a lot of people express that they're quite pleased with how things are looking and how things are interacting with each other.
Yeah, they've seen a lot of interrelationships in the show. Mm-hmm. We spent quite a bit of time yesterday blocking the show out before the opening, and not seeing all the work initially before it came together. It was very interesting yesterday because we started seeing all these parallels and differences and things, but there was this kind of underlying themes that started showing up. Mm-hmm. Color similarities, textural similarities, even some of the way the work was being presented. The little groups of four pieces in little quadrants. Don had one of those. Cheryl had one of those. Neither of which knew that they each had those. So we had some interesting surprises that kind of presented themselves, and a lot of people using a bunch of us using square work. So I was using square work. Cheryl brought in square work. Yeah. So we got all these square pieces, and that's created a kind of a nice continuity throughout the show too. Is this similarity of sizes, similarity of kind of congruity of colors and values, and then the contrast between the abstraction and some of the kind of more realistic elements. So, and I think people like that balance. I mean, that's the impression and the feedback that I've been getting this evening from people who have come through the show, is that they like being able to kind of go back and forth between the two.
So we hope that you'll come out. The exhibition's on till May the 7th at Martin Batchelor Gallery, and hope that you'll come out and check out the show.
You just moved from Toronto over here, right?
Yes, actually. So we just moved out here in October. Came mid-October, and we were only here a few days when Tony gave us a call and asked us if we'd like to be in a show. So it was quite the introduction to Victoria. We have been here, as Tony mentioned, on sabbatical 5-6 years ago. So we're very pleased to be here in such a short period of time and be invited to be a part of a show and to be showing with people who are somewhat established here on the island and have shown many times. For me, it's very exciting because I have never shown before. So this is new for me. But I work in ink on a paper called caddy paper. It's a 320-gram paper. It's handmade from India, and it's made of 100% cotton, recycled cotton rag. And it's produced with a net zero ecological footprint. It's produced in a village called Kadi in India, and the production of this paper sustains the village. So it's a very interesting substrate to begin with, to work on. I actually purchased 3 sheets of this paper, not knowing what I would do. I just liked the paper, and that was the start. And after a few months of having the paper around and touching it and feeling it and bending it and folding it, I came up with the idea of working with ink. So that's what I do, and it's just 100% is a carbon-based ink with emulsion. I separate the emulsion from the carbon, and then I'll put different pigments into the emulsion to create different colors. Over here, you can see that there's some raw burnt sienna and some raw umber and some yellow and so on. And that's created simply by, as I say, adding pigment to the emulsion from the original India ink. And it's just from there, it's a reductive process. It's just applying medium, taking it off, repeating over and over and over, and manipulating the image layer by layer as you go. And that's pretty much the process.
How long you been doing art in general?
Well, I have actually been a fashion designer all of my life, really. Well, all of my professional life. I went to school at Central St. Martin's University of Art and Design in London, England in the 70s. I graduated and worked in Europe in various design houses, fashion design houses, for 4 or 5 years before coming back to Toronto. From fashion, I went into film and television, doing costuming for film and television. And during that period of time, I also got into teaching. So I was teaching fashion design and drafting at Seneca College of Applied Arts and Technology in Toronto. So in a sense, I've been in the arts all of my life, but of course, illustration has always been a big part of my fashion background, doing fashion illustration. But that is the essence of my history.
Hi, Exhibit V, Efren. I'm Cheryl Taves here at Martin Batchelor Gallery at our show Convergence, which is on until May the 7th. And I'm featuring some of my new work. I've actually been pretty quiet the last couple of years. I've been working diligently in my studio, focusing quite intensely on my painting the last year or so. I have been known more for my Mylar work, and I really wanted to dig into the painting, my painting work on panel this year, so that's why I haven't been showing that much. So this is my first show in a while, and featuring some of my newer work right now. So I've got a few larger pieces. This piece over here is called The Smaller Feeling, and it's 40 by 40. And it's an example of the direction I've been taking recently. And I think when I look at this work compared to work that I've done in the past, it feels a little bit more considered. Just been giving a little more time to the work. So in the past, I've always worked very quickly, really focusing on process, which I'm still very interested in, and expressive mark making, gesture, that kind of thing. And I think the work still reflects that, but I've slowed things down a little bit in my process, and I'm really working in layers and building up a continuity and a history in the work and really paying attention. So it's a little bit more of a meditative process, it feels like to me. And so out of that has sort of come this visual language that's been developing, which I've been sort of following the thread of that through all of the work in this show. And I've got some smaller pieces over here, some 12 by 12s that are fairly recent that I've done within the last couple of months that are playing with that same sort of imagery and, again, working in a lot of layers. So one of the things I'm really interested in my painting is working on the different kinds of conversation in a painting. So looking at the loud conversation or the conversation that really draws the viewer in, and then also paying attention to the more subtle conversation, the quieter conversation. So in order to get that, I have to work with a lot of depth and layers in the painting. And that means many iterations on that same piece. So it's not as immediate and fresh, but it has more of that build-up of surface marks and layers of materials to accomplish that. all of the work I have in the show is on panel, but I begin by mounting paper on the panel. I really like a papered surface. There's a quality to paper that I've always responded to, and it's really important to me to be able to scratch into that surface, to be able to sand and tear down the surface and build it back up again. And that's a very physical act, but it also creates a certain energy, I think, in the work that I respond to. And once there's a certain, and it's hard to describe, someone asked me tonight, what is it that you're trying to reach in your painting, and that's really hard for me to articulate, but I think it's really about that place between sort of beauty and decay, where things are still in their form but are also breaking down, and that is really what I'm working towards in my work. When I sort of get to that place and I feel that essence of it, then I usually stop and consider it done. So anyways, it's been an exciting year, and I'm really grateful to be here to be able to show this new work, and I hope you'll come out and check it out.
So the pieces that I put here in the show this time are a series, and I'll work with series, but I don't often show a whole series at the same time. So these are crow pieces, which I've been doing over the past probably close 8-9 months, and I've had an interest in bird pieces for a long time. One of the first shows I had way back when I counted it back was in the 1970s. One of the first shows I had was called In Flight at the Saw Gallery in Ottawa, and it was birds. And so I've had this attraction to birds and birds in flight, and more recently to crows, and seeing them as kind of, you know, travelers and messengers and kind of collectors of information and life experiences. And one of the other members in the Images group that I also belong to, David Ladmore, has done quite a number of crows, and so we've had quite a few conversations about, you know, crows and how there's sort of the idiosyncrasies that they have and the little personalities that they have. And so I started kind of incorporating that and photographing crows and kind of incorporating them into some of these pieces. And so I sort of picked that up and sort of ran with it and got to this idea that they were sort of, you know, traveling the globe, and they were social, and they got together, and they had little interactions with one another, and kind of made little narratives from that. And so we have, you know, crows that are stamp collectors, crows that are, you know, that kind of get together and have meetings, and there's a head crow, and the crow, you know, one of the crows leads a group of other crows doing other things, and there's interactions and conversations going on, and maybe they're not all in English, so I've got a lot of French writing here, so maybe they're French crows, who knows. And one of the other things that's interesting about this group is that I've started incorporating collage elements back in. So I've got not only digital components to the prints, which I've had before, but I'm actually going back in and working over the top with collage, with paint, with chalks, and adding other pieces and inclusions back into the whole surface. So changing the surface again, and that's been really exciting for me, because I do a lot of teaching collage classes, and so to bring those kind of two worlds back together, not only from a digital standpoint, but also, you know, convergence from an analog to digital kind of standpoint too. So I think, and that's what's been really exciting for me, is bringing those two worlds together and establishing that kind of crossover, and the birds, and having kind of these little narratives that present themselves as I'm working, because I never know where I know where the pieces start with the photographs, but I never know where they're going to wind up ending up. So that's where we have it, and the show's been really good for that. I mean, I think in general, we've established this dialogue. We've been talking together, and the pieces start. You know, as the show, the pieces have kind of come together, converged, and created this really interesting dialogue within the space. And I think it's been very exciting for all of us to see that.
And